Starting the recording at my end. I think recording is, yeah, it is working on both sides. Fine. So if you allow, sir, should I allow the participant and then should we initiate?
Yes, yes. Let's start because we have to finish it by 1 hour,
Yeah,
and
yeah.
I have so many things to speak.
Actually, there is no such issue of time, but
Okay.
as because after if we'll expect 15-20 minutes for question answer sometimes.
Right, right. Let finish by 10 o'clock. Then we can go for question answer after that. Okay, we'll
Yes,
try to
yes.
finish it as quick as possible.
Sure,
Right.
sure. Okay, sir.
Yeah,
So thank you, sir. I am allowing the participants.
yeah, yeah. I can see them. Yeah.
We are just initiating within a minute. Few more participants are joining.
Yeah. Let's. Sure, sure.
Hello.
And you let me
Good
know
evening,
when
you
we'll
all.
start.
Yes, sir. Should I initiate, sir?
Yes, yes. Start.
Yes. Thank you, sir. So, hello. Good evening, you all. Myself, Dr. Himanshu Sharma, on the behalf of Team Physio Inculcator, I would like to welcome you all in our today's session. Today, we have a great resource person with us, Dr. Anvesh Pradhan, sir. Dr. Anvesh Pradhan, sir, is a neurophysical therapist. He is an associate professor at the Nopan Institute of Physical Therapy and Healthcare Studies at Kolkata, and he's also the director and consultant at Mobility Physiotherapy and Rehabilitation, Midnapur, West Bengal. So we are really feeling pleased and honored to have Anvesh sir with us on the board. And I would like to say warm welcome and gratitude to you, sir, from the core of my heart, from the side of the whole team Physio Inculcator, as the sir is a very well-known personality in the field of physical therapy, and they are having various contribution for the physiotherapy profession, and is always ready to contribute for the profession, to serve the society and to serve the profession. So we are really thankful to you, sir, for your time sparing and to share your incredible knowledge on the topic for the students. So thanking you, sir. Thank you very much. Now, I would like to introduce the sir in a brief. Dr. Anvesh Pradhan sir is a very experienced neurophysical therapist and has been postgraduated in the neurology and psychosomatic disorder from Garden City College in 2008. And he has also been certified a manual therapist and a research scholar. Dr. Anvesh Pradhan sir has also been accredited as a senior physical therapist at the Mission Hospital, Durgapura, West Bengal, and is also honorary physical therapist at the various institutions in the West Bengal and the guest lecturer at the Vidyasagar Institute of Health Sciences, West Bengal itself. Dr. Anvesh Pradhan sir has their area of competence as a neurophysical therapy, vestibular rehabilitation, intensive care, physiotherapy, PNF, incontinence, pain management, and various neurophysiotherapeutic approaches. Dr. Anvesh Pradhan sir has contributed more than 10 national as well as international publications by their name, and he is area of research mainly is on the neurorehabilitation. Few studies are belong to the gait training and dual task performance activity. Dr. Anvesh Pradhan sir also been received a best teacher award in the MG Mokasi international conference in the 2017 at Kanyakumari, and also received a Young Achievement Award in the first International Physiotherapy Conference, and has been awarded by very numerous awards in the various national as well as international conferences in the country. And Dr. Anvesh Pradhan sir has also been invited as a chief member, panelist, as a resource person, and as a resource person for the workshop in the various national as well as international conferences, and has also conducted a workshop on the vestibular rehabilitation, post-stroke upper limb rehabilitation, and incontinence. So we are really blessed to have the sir with us on the board, and he's also working on a book relating to the physiotherapy in the medical condition. So Dr. Anvesh Pradhan is having outstanding clinical as well as academic achievements by their name, and we are really grateful to the sir for sparing their precious time to share their incredible knowledge with us. I would like to say thank to you, sir, from the core of my heart, and we are really grateful to you for your time sparing. Thank you, sir. Over to you, sir.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Angshu. It was a very brief but very long introduction for me. Anyway, I let's start with the topic. Okay, so Saturday night is a kind of night people want to enjoy, but there are also people with us who want to study something and gather some knowledge and enjoy something. Maybe the effect of lockdown and coronavirus, right? So Saturday night we are spending some time with discussion about knowledges about neurophysiotherapy techniques, right? So when we start with this particular topic, facilitation, I'm just I hope I'm audible to everyone, right? So when we say about neurophysiotherapy, not only neurophysiotherapy, if you go to any field of the physiotherapy, our treatment is basically directed to these two particular words, that is facilitatory and inhibitory techniques. Okay, not only in neurology, in every field of physiotherapy, we do facilitate, we do inhibit various kind of movements. That is what we do, that is what we are the movement therapist, and we initiate movement. We also prevent abnormal movements or unwanted movements, but we always try to get the best movement which is in a normal way. So that is all about this facilitated and inhibitor techniques. Now we're talking this techniques mostly used in neurophysiotherapy context. So let's go forward to this particular topic. So before starting this, let's talk about one thing. That is, what is facilitation? In a basic way, what is facilitation? So you can say that facilitation is something which improve motor control, of our body. Means we can do we do many things to facilitate, and all those things are targeted towards this particular thing, that is to improve the motor control. The next important thing what is done by this facilitation is to encourage certain movements. We encourage movements by these facilitation techniques. So if you go for the definition by the dictionary, it will come like: the response is dependent on the frequency of stimulations and on neuromuscular facilitations, right? So that means neuromuscular facilitation and stimulation, the response of facilitations are depends on the way we are stimulating. So what is stimulation? Stimulation is those techniques of facilitation for by which we develop the movement. Next, by the definition, we can go that say that enhancement of the response of a neuron to a stimulus following prior stimulation. Means we enhance the response, or enhance the response of a neuron, how the neuron behaves in the how the CNS behave with following the prior stimulation. Means the stimulation we used to give, how they start behaving on them. The next one is, sorry, inhibition. So when we say inhibition, basically this means three things. That is, number one, either we stop or we prevent or we slow down a movement. That means either we try to stop a particular type of thing or a response, we try to prevent a particular response, or we try to slow down a response. So what are the things we are doing for that? To the feeling that makes one self-conscious and unable to act in a relaxed, in a natural way. So this is inhibition. We will will give some kind of stimulus, or we will use a techniques by which the person will feel that the self-consciousness is getting affected, and the way they will be not relaxed in the natural way, for which they will try to overcome and do it in a different way, which is the thing we want from the patient to inhibit a particular thing. Next is a resistance on the direct expression of an instinct. Means I am, say for example, a neurological SCP kid or something, they are trying to do an abnormal type of functional movement. We will prevent that to happen. So that is inhibition. Next is slowing or prevention of a process, a reaction, or function by a particular substance. That means that says the whole thing, that slowing or prevention of a process means we are preventing the process, we are preventing a reaction, we are preventing a function by a particular we are giving something, a stimulus, which is preventing this thing, and as also it helps in like to developing in a normal way. So what is the use of facilitation and what is the use of inhibition? If you say in a simple way, facilitation is the one which enhance a particular motor movement. Inhibition is a one which prevent a abnormal to development of an abnormal motor movement. So that is all about that. Now if you go through any techniques, you go in neurophysiotherapy, we go for roots, we go for Bobat, that same the NDT, Brunstone, PNF, whatever technique you say in neurology, all those techniques are based on giving a facilitatory procedures and an inhibitory procedure in various manner. Okay, so that means what? In neurophysiotherapy, these techniques are meant for two things: that to train our brain. In neurophysiotherapy, we have to understand whole body. The whole body is being controlled by the brain, and our treatment is to train the brain, whether it's a PNS, whether it's a CNS, it's a ANS, whatever the system it is. Ultimately, the brain controls everything, and you are training the brain through these techniques. So what are the theoretical basis? So if you go through this, the basic two theories of motor control, when they came from like the Serrington's reflex theory and hierarchical theories afterwards, they all said about that thing, that our responses towards a movement are based on the reflexes, and as well as the time passes, it has been changed to various way, but they also do follow the reflex and the hierarchical theory. The like what are the faults are there, the other theories overcome that. So what they say, the basic unit of motor control is reflex, right? So it's basically true. See, if you see a development of a child, let's see a development of a normal infant. The infant born, and they eventually grow up, they develop so many motor activities, like we develop so many motor activities, and through this procedure we also goes through a various stages of reflexes. We have brainstem reflexes, spinal cord reflex, and those reflexes are the milestone. That means why these reflexes are there, what is the use of these reflexes? Because these reflexes are basically the first step of a purposeful movement. We develop a reflex, and based on that reflex, we develop a particular movement, a particular motor control. So that is what the theory says. A reflex leads to a purposeful movement. Next is damage to the CNS results to re-emerge of the inability to control the reflexes. That means once there is a damage to its CNS happen, then CNS needs to re-emerge, and inability of the reflex can require to be done again and again. Motor next hierarchical theory, it says CNS structures involved with movement can be grouped into higher, middle, and lower levels. So as per the movement, we'll be deciding which is higher level, which is middle level, which is lower levels. Then higher centers regulate and control the middle and lower centers. That means again the brain controls. So we have to think about the brain. It stimulates all the thing. It's a hierarchical. Brain controls, spinal cord controls, like that. It goes downwards. So damage to the CNS results to disruption of the normal coordinated function of these levels. So one damage, CNS is damaged, all thing is going to damage. Only PNS damaged, it will not cause a major problem to other things except that particular nerve related issues. Otherwise, nothing will happen, right? So if you go through all the theories of motor control, so as we're talking about motor control, so theories like controlling movement, so we need to know about the theories of motor control. And if you go through them, you can find out that all the theories, reflex theory, hierarchical theory, system theory, motor program theory, dynamic action theory, ecological theories, whatever theories you speak, all theories are basically, see, I have highlighted the points, see that the reflex are the basics of all movements, hierarchical voluntary movements initiated by will. All are saying that we have to stimulate a movement and we have to inhibit a particular movement. So that is what it says. Now, this is a well-known picture to a physiotherapist, that is the homunculus of the motor cortex and the somatic sensory cortex and how it behaves. So whichever, that means we are going to stimulate through all these structures. We are stimulating the hand, we are stimulating the skin, we are stimulating the joints, we're like all areas. But on no, we're not actually looking for face, we're actually not looking for upper limb, or we're not looking for lower limb. We are basically looking for the structures beneath them, and then we are stimulating them. So I'll be going through that in this detail. So let's come to the techniques directly. That is the manual, facilitatory, and inhibitor techniques. So these are the techniques. These are the most common techniques. Let's talk about the common techniques first. Okay, let's talk about the common techniques first, how it is done. Now, once we know about these techniques to be done, then we will go through the theories. Okay, and then we will try to find out which theories is working in which manner, like how they are helping, how this facilitation and inhibition being explained by these theories, and how it is helping for a neurophysiotherapy procedures. So let's talk about them. First is quick stretch. This is the commonest and the quickest one. So what is there in quick stretch? Right. Okay. So what is there in quick stretch? Quick stretch, let's talk about the receptor which is acting on the quick stretch. That is the muscle spindle endings detecting length and velocity changes. So where it works, that is the muscle spindle ending. What it detects the length and velocity changes, how the length is altering with the velocity. So that is what the receptor will recept. The stretch is quick stretch or tapping over the muscle belly or tendon. Quick stretch or tapping over the muscle. So can do it a quick stretch or tap on the particular structure. So both will work as a quick stretch. And what is the response? It activates the agonist to contract. See? So there is no movement. You initiate with a quick stretch, you give a quick stretch and relax. Give the quick stretch and ask the person to do a movement. Automatically, the person will start doing the movement. So that is the response. Reciprocal innervations effects and will inhibit the antagonist. That means the particular muscle which gets the quick stretch, the opposite, the antagonist of that muscle will inhibit, and this basically helps in developing a synergistic movement. Very important thing is quick stretch. Like if you have attended the yesterday's PNF seminar, webinar, I think sir has explained about that particular quick stretch there too. Now, so what is the response? The response is temporary, means whatever the activation of agonist, okay, inhibition of the antagonist. So what is this particular technique? It's facilitate agonist and inhibit antagonist. I need to facilitate the agonist, I will do this quick stretch, and inhibit the antagonist at the same time, I will do the quick stretch, right? And but the response is temporary. So that means the time when you have given, that time only you have to do the activity. You have to develop the movement at that moment. Otherwise, this is not effective at all. Prolonged stretch. So this is again working on the muscle spindle ending and the Golgi tendon organs, and it maintains stretch in a lengthened range. Means like slow, sustained stretching. Okay, it dampens the muscle contractions. Now you remember, most of the physiotherapists know, like when we see a stroke patient with spasticity, in general, most of the physiotherapists will do a slow, sustained stretching for those contracted spasmed muscles, like spastic muscles, and you may get a relaxed muscle movement after that particular stretching. So that is prolonged stretch. So like we have seen the effect by ourselves by doing this, and it can be done by serial casting, splinting, overnight splinting. So it will release a particular muscles spasm, hypertonicity, increased tone. It can release that thing, that prolonged stretch. So it's basically a facilitated technique for spastic muscles, or say hypertonic muscles somewhere. Resistance, very important. This is like I will say, in the profession of physiotherapy, this resistance is the best facilitation technique among all. This is the best. Like you give resistance, you activate everyone. Receptors are muscle spindles. Once you give resistance, the muscles will try to feel that movement. The muscles will feel that they are active, they're alive, they're working. The brain will identify the muscles are alive. That is what the resistance can do. So what is the stimulus? Resistance given manually or with body weight or gravity or mechanical weight. So we need to decide as per our patient that whether we will give a resistance manually, or we can use some body weight. Body weight in the sense the patient's body weight, not your body weight. You will be getting up on the patient, giving not like that. That is a patient's own body weight, or the gravity which is acting on that, or if we can use a mechanical weights too. The response is enhance muscle contraction through recruitment. It facilitates synergies, enhance kinesthetic awareness. Very important. You need to get aware of your movements, right? So kinesthetic awareness, so facilitate the kinesthetic awareness of a person. Say I am able to do my movements. If I don't know, my brain don't know that I am able to do a movement, everything is wrong, right? Everything goes wrong. Means if your brain needs to know about the kinesthetic awareness. Now, it also facilitates the synergist. Resistance needs to be graded dependent on the patient response and goal. Addition, recruitment, and overflow may be counterproductive to movement goal. Means you are giving resistance, but you need to understand whom to give and how to give. Approximation. Purely a joint related areas, we need to approximate. Usually we do the approximation for like a lax joint, or when we are doing, anti-gravity movement, we usually go for not like we're going through the gravity, we're going through the gravity, we usually go for approximation. We go against the gravity, we usually go for a joint traction. So approximation, the receptors are in the joint, and the stimulus is compression of joint surface, manual or mechanical, even the bouncing, like you make the person sit and then get up like that way. Responses are enhanced muscular contraction, proximal stability, and postural extension, increases kinesthetic awareness and postural stability. So it's very important one, that is it makes the person aware of their posture, about their kinesthetic, their stability, all those things get the person will get aware about that thing. And also it enhances the muscle contraction. And very importantly, see, whenever we talk about movement, the movements are based on two positions, like either the distal one as well as the proximal one. So proximal stability is very important, which get enhanced by this approximation. effective in combination with rhythmic stabilization and contraindication in inflamed joints. So if you do not do it in a inflamed joint, this kind of techniques, traction, as I was saying, joint receptors again, and the joint surface will get distracted. And usually when you go with the against the mm, gravity, we usually go for this joint surface distracted, usually manually, and at the beginning of the movement. That means we do a traction and let the movement happen, or while happening the movement, we sometimes maintain the traction or sometimes we reduce the traction. It facilitates the muscle activation to improve mobility and movement initiation. That means this traction also have some role or has some relation with the quick stretch. You give a traction with a quick stretch and do a movement, you will get a very nice initiation movement. So, like, so for example, you are seeing a patient, a neuro patient, who is not able to initiate a movement. Go for this. You will get a movement for sure. Or you can initiate the movement. You give a traction, you give a quick stretch, mix it, do it, you will get the result. Use This is useful to activate initial mobility and also used as a part of a mobilization technique. Inhibitory pressure. So it's a pressure. Again, when we are giving a pressure, it works on the Golgi tendon organ, muscle spindles, and the tactile receptors. Very important. Tactile, so how we are touching. Our touch is very important. I think with physiotherapists, when we have studied through our bachelor course, for sure, our teacher, like everyone's teacher, has told about this particular thing to every student. Okay, this is the way you touch a patient, the way you hold a patient gives your 50% result of your treatment. So that is very important. And all this holding, touching are the tactile like you are stimulating the tactile receptor. So that is what is inhibitory pressure we're talking about. Firm pressure manually or with body weight over the muscle belly or tendon. So we're giving the pressure on a particular muscle or belly and it inhibits the muscle activity, damping effect. Like say, given an example, we don't need to understand to read the science like behind that. You go through a normal individual. Someone has developed a cramp. A layman person has developed a cramp. What they do? They hold that muscle. They hold that muscle, give a pressure. This is a normal phenomena. We do it, and this is basically inhibitory response. It's inhibit the muscle activity, inhibit the muscle tone, and it's dampen the muscle tightness, the spasm, the tone, and it reduces its activity. Like say for example, you are sitting in a particular position for a long duration, and you have found that tingling sensation on your feet. Give pressure on that particular part, you will find that that tingling sensation has gone. So these are all that inhibitory muscle action and dampening effect on the muscle. Equipment can be used to achieve effect like cast and splints. Weight bearing activities can provide inhibitory pressure. Light touch, again, rapidly adapting tactile receptors, autonomic nervous system, especially the sympathetic division, uh, feel that light touch. And usually it is brief light contact to skin, brief light contact to skin, and it increased arousal and withdrawal response. So basically, this increased arousal means you will be aware of that particular touch, as well as you will develop a withdrawal response to that touch. So this is a kind of thing. You are touching, you're giving a small light touch, and what happens, you withdraw that. Like it's like a kind of tingling type of sensation you may develop, right? As well as you will get aroused about that touch. So you will be aroused about that particular body part and the movements or the position, posture, whatever it is, but you will have a nature of withdrawing your body part from there, affecting in initiating a generalized movement response to elicit arousal. Contraindicated with agitated patients, very important. We need to understand the contraindication. Limitations are very important. We do things, but we need to know about the limitations of particular things. So this is the limitation. You go for an agitated person and you may not find a good result for this light touch. Maintain touch, very nice. So it slowly adapting tactile receptors. Again, it works on the ANS, but on the parasympathetic division. So earlier one was on the sympathetic. This one is on the parasympathetic divisions. So the stimulus is maintained contact or a mild pressure. Response is calming effect, desensitizes the skin, provides general inhibition. So basically, maintain touch is for the inhibition. You get a very agitated child, you are going to train them some movements, maybe some abdominal movements, maybe some upper limb movements, but they are agitated and they're not uh, responding to your movements. Make them touch the particular part, keep them in touch. That you may find that the move that overactive child has become a bit desensitized, right? So useful for patients with high level of arousal or hypersensitivity. Manual contacts. So now, as I have talked about touch, now we'll be talking about a generalized manual contact. And this goes for all patients, like not only neurophysiotherapy portions, for every patients, neuro patients or any patients, you touch the way you are touching, you're holding, you're contacting a person, that initiate a movement. Sorry, that like what to say, like that encourage, that facilitates a particular movement or something like that. So the receptors are the tactile receptors, muscle proprioceptors, and the stimulus is far deep pressure of hand over the body area. So we are holding it, we are holding a particular part. Importantly, this manual contact, one thing we need to understand, that this contact should not be painful. Anything painful, any stimulus which is painful is always inhibited. Any stimulus which is painful, because if you go through the definition of the pain, it's an unpleasant sensation which you do not want to feel. Okay, which can be emotional, which can be physiological, which can be psychological, but whatever unpleasant, the pain should not come. So this manual contact, this is very important point, that we should maintain this particular thing, that there is no pain developing in through your manual contact. So it facilitates contraction of the muscle underneath the hands and activates the muscle response, enhance sensory, kinesthetic awareness, and it provides a security and support. Like your patient will feel comfort with your manual contact. Okay, should not feel fearful, or should not get afraid about your touch. Slow stroking. So again, it's a tactile receptors and it works on the ANS parasympathetic division. So what we do slow farm stroking with flat hand over neck, air or trunk extensions. Like, so it's usually done for the pediatric conditions where we need to develop the neck control. That is in being in a prone position and then lifting the neck up. So what we do this kind of slow stroking on over the neck and the trunk to initiate that particular movement. So what is the response? It produces calming effect, general inhibition, and induces feeling of security. So the person will start doing the movement. So this is basically an inhibitor technique. Neutral warmth, very important. Now, if you and we need to understand that the warmth around the patient body is very important. The more warmth the person will, like we do not like to do exercises in a cold temperature. We want to do it in a normal neutral temperature, which makes us comfortable. So it also works on the tactile receptors, parasympathetic divisions, ANS. So towel or elastic wrap of body or body part, we can wrap the body part if requires to stimulate them. So it provides general relaxation, inhibition, a decreased muscle tone, a decreased agitation or pain. So basically it inhibits, and inhibits in the sense it normalize the higher part to normal, right? So what we'll be talking again, use for 10 to 15 minutes, and overheating should be avoided. Like sometimes what we do, we try to make the person feel warm in that particular room and we end up in heating, and sometimes it increase the agitation. Sorry. Next is slow vestibular stimulation. That is the receptors are the tonic vestibular receptors. Stimulus are slow rocking, slow movement on ball, in handcuff, in a rocking chair. So these are the slow vestibular movements. So you'll be doing a rocking. Basically, you to make understand, you go for a slow rocking type of movements. It produces calming effect, decreased arousal, and general inhibition. It's very nice thing. Slow vestibular. Like say for example, you might have experienced in your own life also, like when you are very tensed, okay, or you are afraid of something, you are actually in a high arousal state. What we do, we basically sit in a particular place and try to rock slowly. We do it, we usually do it, we like unknowingly we do it, we slowly rock, okay, we do a slow movements. Why we do that? Our brain sends the stimulus for the body to happen. Like if we do this, it automatically reduces the high arousal level of our body. Now same thing, so it's useful for the patients who are defensive to sensory stimulus, hyperactive, very very important, to stimulation, hypertonic or agitated. So these things are very important thing. Like you rock, you feel calm. Fast vestibular stimulation, so this works on the semicircular canals, right? So what is the stimulus for that? Fast or irregular movements with acceleration or deceleration components, such as spinning, use of scooter board, fast rolling, like you make them roll. So this semicircular canal try understand two type of movements. One is uh, forward movement, another one is the angular movement. So those movements will be developed by the stimulus, and it facilitates general muscle tone and promotes postural. So overall postural response will improve with the fast vestibular stimulation. Fine. So this is so till now. Let's sum up this particular portion now. That is, uh, this is the overall uh, common techniques of facilitation and inhibition. So we are facilitating to normalize the tone. We are inhibiting again to normalize the tone. Means if it is more, we will inhibit to normalize. If it is less, we will facilitate to normalize. Remember, all these techniques are not used to increase or decrease. The terms, the meaning of the thing is actually increasing and decreasing, but we should not, the term which we should use is to normalize. Means we are trying to normalize the reduced tone to increased tone. We are trying to normalize the increased tone to reduce tone, something like that. We are not supposed to say that increase the tone or reduce the tone. That is a term which in nowadays is not relevant. We should say normalize the tone. Now we'll talk about these approaches. These approaches are the sensory motor approaches, which states the most of the facilitation and inhibition techniques. So first is the roots. So let me see, what is the time? I think we have 15 minutes to complete. Himanshu, it is right, 15 minutes to complete, right, Dr. Himanshu?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Right. So I think there are so many slides are there. I'll just brief it out as quick as possible.
No,
Then,
no
right?
issue, no issue, sir. It's okay. It's okay. Please.
right. So as we are talking about this about these techniques and their things, we're just briefing. I'm just trying to brief it out as quick as possible. What are the major points on the slides we're talking about? So the motor patterns are developed from the fundamental patterns and reflex. So what is important in this particular slide is this one. That is the sensory stimulation is applied to muscles and joints. This particular thing will lead to normalization of the tone. This particular thing will produce a desired movement. That means a normal functional movement. That is the aim. That is the goal of our overall roots procedures. Now the movement should be purposeful. A repetition of sensory motor response is necessary because the repetition only makes us perfect on their performances. So the goals are, again, normalize the tone. That is the primary one. So treatment begins at the developmental level of functioning, whichever development level we are. Movements is directed towards the functional goals. Repetition is necessary for re-education of muscular response. So what are the rules, principle of the treatment? The principle of the treatment they have given. Let's talk about the rules of the sensory input. There are the rules are basically, number one, fast brief stimulus produces large synchronous movement. You just go for the rules. of sensory inputs. It says fast brief stimulus produces large synchronous movements. Fast repetitive produces maintained response, and slow rhythmical movement produce repetitive sensory input, deactivate the body. That means we that is the principle. So we need to encourage a facilitation. We have to go for fast brief stimulus or fast repetitive stimulus, and we want to inhibit, we'll go for a slow rhythmical stimulus. So overall, the principle of roots treatment are based on two things, that is stabilizers and mobilizers. Who are the stabilizers? They are heavy work muscles. Who are the mobilizers? They are the light work muscles. That means stabilizers maintain the posture, mobilizers do a skilled movement. So these are the light work. They work over the stabilizer. So we need to work for the stabilizer first, and then we'll go for the mobilizers first. Sorry, second. So there are, as per the roots, there are total 4 motor control components. Number 1 is the reciprocal inhibition, co-contraction, heavy work, and skill. So what is reciprocal inhibition? That is talking about mobility. We are basically encouraging a mobility movement on a particular person. Number 2, co-contraction. This movement should be done on the stable component of a human body. So the mobility over the stability component is the one is important. Then when we're talking about a proper work, heavy work, that time this mobility is superimposed on the stability. Means the body should be stable, then the mobility will come. And when we talk about the skill is all about the complete coordination between the mobility and stability. We develop a very skillful movement. And as per the roots, our development of a particular thing based on these points, that is supine withdrawal, rollover to sideline, pivot prone, neck contraction, prone on elbows, quadruped, standing, walking. Now you are seeing kid, you go through this process. You first train like this particular serial procedures. You are seeing a stroke patient, you train them as per this one. So you are supposed to give facilitation for example, a neck co-contractions. We need to facilitate prone on elbows. We need to facilitate quadruped position, standing, and then only we can go for walking. We cannot overrule one particular step and then go for the further thing. So the techniques they use for facilitations are cutaneous facilitation, that is for light moving touch, fast brushing. So we have talked about that. Thermal facilitation like A icing, which is K, like quick icing. C icing is basically done for the chest, diaphragm. Autonomic icing, and the proprioceptive facilitations are there like heavy joint compression, quick stretch, intrinsic stretch, secondary ending stretch, uh, stretch pressure, resistance, tapping, vestibular stimulation, inversion, therapeutic vibration, osteopressure. So these are the techniques. Like we have talked about the common techniques. These all techniques goes on that, except this icing procedure and the brushing things. We'll be discussing that in detail too, to make you understand. Other things we have already talked in the common procedures, right? And the inhibitory techniques as per roots are the neutral warmth, gentle shaking or rocking, slow rolling, tendinous pressure, light joint compression, maintain stretch, rocking in development positions. So this is about the quick brushing techniques they're saying. So quick brushing means we'll be brushing in a particular area in a quick format, quick brushing. So we'll be using a brush like paintbrush or something, or even we can use the cotton or something also, a soft touch, and we'll be brushing. Now this brushing can be mostly done with a soft, and sometimes it is done with a hard one also, depending on the patient's requirement. So if we are doing the soft one, we'll be doing this brushing, and mostly the brushing is done from proximal to distal way. So this is basically a facilitatory procedure where we'll be doing the brushing technique for this, and it we facilitate the skin, and when we facilitate the skin, the superficial muscles will get excited and they will start giving the action accordingly. Okay, now brief application of cold. So the brushing And next one is temperature. So we can use the ice again in the same pattern. So to facilitate, we will go for the proximal to distal. Inhibit, we usually go for distal to proximal. That's how we go for a icing in Roots technique. Slow stroking. So it usually rhythmically done a technique which excessive muscle tone. So it's reduced. It's basically inhibitory procedures. Now, precautions, very important. As we know the techniques, we need to know about the precautions too. So the area brushed is very specific in terms of dermatome and myotome. So we need to understand about, we have a knowledge of the dermatome, we should have a dermatome and myotome knowledge, and then we perform that. So it should be used only up to 3 seconds in one place at a time. Okay, means this brushing should be done for 3 seconds at a time, like quick brushing. You cannot do for a longer, and can be delayed to 20 to 30 minutes where nerve pathways have not been active through disuse or inhibitions, right? Uh, do not use mechanical tools, right? Say, for example, you're using a particular, like a knee hammer and doing a stroke, to prevent them. In case of flaccidity, brushing may cause seizure. So slow rhythmical stroking is important and usually should be done within 3 minutes, not more than that. Brushing the skin of the ear and outer third of the forehead should be avoided. So these areas are avoided because it has a central inhibitory reactions. If you brush about on the forehead and back of the ear, you will end up in uh, uh, inhibiting the CNS system. And precautions for icing is also very important. That is, ice used behind the ear can lead to sudden lowering of the blood pressure. Like again, it acts on the CNS system and the ANS system and causes the trouble. So avoid using brushing or icing above behind the ear region. Right, ice applied superficial tips receptors in the sole, feet, palm, hand should be avoided in young children because it's potentially nociceptive. If you provide ice on the palm and sole, it will cause pain to the children. But for adult, you can use it. Ice applied over the skin by the posterior primary rami uh, may set up a chain of effects on viscera over which one has one control. That is what, like, that's why we have A icing, C icing, the icing techniques on the area. Like we are going C icing is mostly done for abdominal muscle stimulation, diaphragm stimulations, right? So if you going for the trunk, you do it in a way. So ice used for left shoulder may be dangerous if there is a cardiac issues. Next techniques we have talked about PNF, and I think I can skip this as this is already done yesterday. I will just uh, talk about the particular thing that PNF is basically it's a facilitation. There is no inhibition here mostly, like not inhibition in the sense. This is basically a technique which facilitates the movement in a way. So when it facilitates in for the agonist group, it facilitates for the antagonist group. And as we have talked about the techniques of facilitation inhibition earlier, there are some facilitation of the agonist that will inhibit the antagonist, as well as some techniques will facilitate the antagonist and some will inhibit the agonist. So there is a direct and indirect effect of a facilitation and inhibition through this PNF procedure. So what are the things we use? We use manual contacts, the vision. Say in PNF, this is like I prefer this particular thing a lot. So seeing the movement what you are doing is important. If you do not see what you are doing, obviously your brain the brain is only depending on your proprioceptors. But if you're seeing, so it will helping the proprioceptors to perform the better way, right? So it gives a very good feedback. So seeing verbal commands, the way you command, it depends on the, like it stimulates you command a person in a proper way. Like say for example, go and lift your hand towards the sky, lift your hand towards me, push your hand towards me. Or you say someone like we sometimes we do give commands like say, so for example, I'm giving a resistance exercise. I will say push, 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 push. uh, this is not the way. So see, we need to give a command to the brain, not that particular body part. So push towards me is the command what we should give, rather than saying push, push, push like that ways. Stretch, quick and prolonged stretch. Quick stretch is mostly used in PNF. Fraction is used. Approximation is also used in PNF. Timing of the movements, that's very important. As I've said, the first thing, quick stretch, the first stretch technique I talked about is the quick stretch. I said stretch and do the movement should be done in a together. The timing is very important. Otherwise, the movement will not develop. Rhythmic stabilizations is already done in yesterday's webinar. Next come the Brunstrom's approach. See, it's basically depend on two main contribution. That is, one is a description of a stereotypical synergic patterns and recovery stages of patients in following a cerebrovascular accident. So these are the things we are talking about. That is the description of stereotypical synergy patterns and the recovery stages of patients seen in the cerebrovascular accidents. So it highlights the importance of current emphasis on working towards the goal of voluntary control and functional limitations experienced by patients as they work towards the recovery. You need to set a goal for performing and then work on them. So brainstorm techniques are basically based on CVA patients, right? And most of the things, all the synergies, motor patterns, whatever brainstorm has done it mostly based on the CVA patients and how they behave with the facilitation techniques and not. Let me see the time. Okay, fine. So I have 3 minutes. Dr. Himanshu, 3 minutes, right?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Fine. I think we'll be finishing by 10:05, 10:15 maximum.
Okay, sir. No, sure,
Not more than that.
Okay, sir.
No, like my slides will get finished by 10:05, and we can go for a question answers after that, right?
Sure, sure.
Fine. So I'm just going for the techniques basically, rather than going for this theoretical portion of the for like this Bobat Brunstrom techniques, right? So NDT. So what are the techniques we used in NDT? Basically the handling techniques. The way we handle NDT is all like it's the neurodevelopment technique is basically direct towards the handling procedure. How we handle, okay? How we handle the like that's like say the hands are used to support and assist movement from one position to another. Active assisted movements is always encouraged. That means we direct the movement. The person is trying to do a movement like this. We hold it in a way or handle it in a way or direct it in a way so that do it in a different position. So application is basically light touch or intermittent touch. Means I'm asking the person to lift the hand. So the person is going this way. I need to the person to go this way. So what I will do, I will give some touch towards the thing. So the touch, based on the touch, the person will do the movement. So this is handling. Positionings, you position the patient, make them do the movement. And use of adaptive equipments. We use so many adaptive equipments in NDT. Like, say, for example, we provided postural support, prevent deformity, promote alignments, enhance function, offer mobility, a common adjunct to intervention to children with the neurological impairment. And application is equipment can be used dynamically to assist the movement. Like the most commonest thing is like, say, for example, Swiss ball. We use a Swiss ball to encourage the trunk stability. We use a Swiss ball to encourage the pelvic stability. So these are the things we use in NDT. So the key point control its clinical uses. Part of the body are chosen as optimal. That means we need to decide a particular body part as per NDT, and then we work on them. Like, say, for example, we are putting up a kid on a Swiss ball, and we are trying to train them to control their pelvis. We are controlling the pelvis, we are controlling the core muscles, and we are making them, giving them tasks to do. We are asking them to reach sitting on a ball. We are asking them to throw a ball sitting on a Swiss ball. Like those things are important. Okay. Now, am I audible?
Yes, sir, you are audible,
Right.
sir.
Right. Okay. So facilitating transitional movements. That is very important. If you ask for a NDT therapist, they will work lots on this thing. That's transitional movements. So facilitate key movements components during active transitional movements. What they do, they provide facilitation of anti-gravity control, weight bearing, weight shifting, response to movements. For an example, I'm giving a procedure. You put a kid on a big size ball, like a 75 centimeter ball, and then you put a kid, ask the person to lie there, and then roll from there towards the smaller ball. So these are the type of movements we do in NDT to facilitate the movement and understand of the postural responses. For an example, this is one, and also like putting the patient on a ball bait or something like that. And we use a lots of sensory inputs in NDT. Right, sensory inputs like voluntary movement control is facilitated through proprioceptive inputs, exteroceptive inputs, visual, vestibular, verbal inputs, all inputs. Like these are the stimulation of the senses. We stimulate the senses and we facilitate the movement. So sensory stimulus are used to facilitate the movement. Application is proprioceptive inputs include weight bearing, approximation, stretching. So the same thing will come. Like whatever the common thing we have discussed in the previous portions of the slide, those things are used in various way in all these technique, in a combination of a technique of those facilitation techniques, combination of the inhibition techniques, sometimes combination of a facilitation and inhibition techniques to inhibit a particular thing and facilitate a particular thing in a given time. Motor learning strategies, as per entity, we train them. What is motor learning strategies we're talking about here? It's basically encourage them to practice the thing. The say we used to write as a child, and as you grow bigger, our handwriting improved, right? So that is a learning that we have learned through our performances and the feedback how it looks, and that is what is implied by NDT training. The last one, sensory integration. So sensory integration basically based on the few assumptions. These are the individual receives information from their bodies and the environment and process and interpret the information through their CNS. Means I am sitting in a chair, I am sitting in a sofa, I am sitting in a bed, I'm sitting on a Swiss ball. Whatever I am doing, it depends on my sensations. My body sense it, and when it sense it, it react it accordingly. Means if I'm sitting in a bed, the way I'll be balancing myself. If I'm sitting in a normal chair, the way I'm balancing. I'm sitting in a Swiss ball, the way I balance. See, all are sitting, but as the sensory inputs from our proprioceptors we are getting, the muscle tendons are getting, we maintain our posture accordingly. So that is the thing we are talking about here. So here we stimulate the sensations in a way that a resultant functional thing will come out. So that is a stimulation or a facilitation of the sensations. So individuals with sensory processing will demonstrate problems in planning and execution of adaptive. That means anyone who have lack of sensory input, they will develop some abnormality in their movements. So what is the motto? That is the individual who receives stimulation within meaningful context will have the opportunity to integrate the sensory information, demonstrating more efficient motor skill and adaptive behaviors. That means those who have a very like we have to stimulate each and every sense. We stimulate the eye. That means the vision. We stimulate through ear. That means by command. We stimulate through proprioceptors. We stimulate through tactile. We stimulate through vestibular system. We stimulate through kinesthetic receptors, all the stimulations are done. Like say for, like you may find that you a kid who is, like say for example, not able to understand how to walk or to stand properly, make them stand in a sand or in slippery surface, or put them on a ball pit where they need to balance themselves. So these are the things what we do. So sensory integration is a theoretical intervention frame of reference that is built around the relationship between brain and behavior, how our brain is behaving based on that. So overall, if you see all the facilitation techniques, these are, see, the techniques what we have learned prior, that means these portions, if you can go through like these techniques, these the techniques what we have said, all these techniques has come from these theoretical assumptions, and we are using this facilitation and inhibition techniques. So we know that which is facilitation and which is inhibition, and how, what it inhibits and what it facilitates. So when we know this, we can use them. Like, if number one, if you know this techniques, it can help you to understand how to handle a condition, as well as maybe you do not know roots technique properly, you do not know PNF properly, you do not know NDT properly, but you know these things. So it will also help you to treat the person in a way, like you have to facilitate which movement, but the concept should remain same, that is to develop a good and normal movement in a patient, right? So Dr. Himanshu, I think
Yes, sir.
that's all for the thing. Right. So that's all for the thing. Today's presentation, I think this concludes. Okay. And those who want to get this slide, they can get it. The details are given here. Okay. You go through there and you can find this particular slide present in that website. It's like www.slideshare.net at Anvesh Pradhan. Okay.
Thank you, sir.
Even you
Thank you.
can type, if you type inhibition also, I think you will get this inhibition and facilitation technique. Anyway,
Okay.
fine. So I think we are ready for the questions.
Yes, sir. Thanks, sir. Thanks a lot for such a great elaborative session on the facilitation and inhibition techniques of the neurophysiotherapy. And now we are open for the question and answers. I would request to all the participants, if anyone has any query, they can write down the queries in the chat box, and then we can entertain the queries.
I hope this will help, because this particular presentation, this is actually not for a 1 hour thing, right?
Yeah.
There are like each and every techniques, if you go through them, there are so many things, so many more things to say on them, like how to do it, what are the things, what are the limitation of the thing. Like there are some things it requires a practical demonstration also sometime. Anyway, I hope people who have attended that they have understood the topic. Let's see. Let's check
Yes.
for the question. How shall I get the question? I'm not seeing the questions.
Yeah, there is no much
Shall I
queries
stop sharing
available
this?
right now.
Then the question will come, right? If I stop sharing this, the question will come, right?
No, sir. You can see the chat box. Yeah, if you will stop the sharing screen, or you can press Alt plus H, then the chat box would be visible to you. But still, there is no questions here.
Okay, fine.
So again, one more time, I would like to request the participant, if they would have any query, they can ask. It was a very good and wonderful session and nicely explained, sir. So because all of the technique in such a short period of time, you have wonderfully explained, elaborated enough, and as it was a good theoretical session, we have a good theoretical discussion on the all facilitation and inhibition techniques. Now there is one query from Johar Maina, sir. Sir, what makes the slow brushing technique to be delayed for 20 to 30 minutes? Any physiology behind it?
Sir, Dr. Maina, sir, say basically this slow brushing is delayed in the sense, like say this slow brushing basically a kind of a, it facilitate the understanding of a movement, as well as it also make us like it do not create a movement. It facilitates the tactile receptors and make the person aware of that particular movement, or the presence of the particular region, but it does not produce any movement on that region. So if we increase the duration for a given time, it will start stimulating the, as like if you go through the myotomes and dermatomes, we will start stimulating the myotomes and dermatomes. So that's why the things will get delayed to 20 to 30 minutes. That is what usually happens here.
Thank you, sir. Thank you very much. There's one more query, sir, from Dr. Dhanjit. Is quick stretch can be used for hypotonic muscles? If yes, then how?
Yes. Hypotonic muscles, quick stretch will help. Hypotonic muscles, obviously, quick stretch will help. And basically, what it happens there, we need to add it. Like say, so when we say hypotonic, let's say consider a stroke patient. The patient is in a hypotonic position. We will give a very mild stretch along with the movement. We will try to
Sir,
initiate
voice.
the movement. We'll ask the person to.
Excuse me, sir.
Yes.
Yes,
Am I
sir.
audible?
Now it is fine, sir. Actually, voice was not audible that time. Yes.
Right. I think my speaker is moving this side, and I'm not able to listen. People are not able to listen. Now I think it is. I have to keep the mic in front of my mouth. It happens with the earphone sometimes. Anyway, so as I've said, obviously in hypotonic muscles we can use a quick stretch, right? But again, we need to do one thing. See, if we are, say for example, we are treating a hemiplegic patient, okay, we can give the quick stretch to initiate a movement. But if we find at least a single amount of a movement, like we can realize that tone has started developing on the patient and we are able to get some movement on that, we should not continue this quick stretch for a prolonged period, because this quick stretch again will cause, like it will increase the muscle tone further. So we will do the quick stretch to initiate the movement, but as soon as the movement start developing, we do not go for the quick stretch further usually.
Thank you, sir. Thanks a lot.
Yes.
So, is there any specific technique for autistic childs?
Yes. See, autistic childs do have, like you may get autistic child in two different ways. One is a child who are highly aroused, a child who are the arousal levels are low. So when we go for a highly aroused child, we usually go for a procedures which make them the arousal level to down. One of them is the slow rocking, right? That is the slow vestibular movements, like slow rocking. That helps the autistic child a lot to reduce their control, their arousal level, like that control their agitation, and sometimes that can increase their concentration towards the performance also. Like say for example, now this is important. Now, how much we should do, that we have to understand by assessing the patient. And now a person who is very low on movement, we need to give them arousal, right? So what kind of arousal we need to give? The commonest one is verbal. Sometimes verbal doesn't help them. So we can give them high vestibular stimulus. So like hard rocking. So if you give hard rocking, sometimes they develop the thing. Now, what are the main issue is, whenever we're talking about this facilitation inhibition, especially for the autism child, we need to identify, like it's like a give and try. Means you have to try the techniques on them and find out which suits that child the best and go for that.
Thank you, sir. Thanks a lot. There's one more question, that how we get to know that we are doing a technique on a correct way?
Yes, that is something. See, when you ask this question, that how to know that whether we are doing a particular technique in a correct way or wrong way, there is two definite answer. Number one, you need to experience it. Number one, you need to experience it. Means when you are doing that particular technique, like it, how much you are supposed to do. So that is the right, and how you are doing the. You need to experience it. You have to apply on the patients and see the feedback when you are doing it. Like say, how to gain this experience? That is, you need to be a very observative when you're performing the movements. You are finding the muscle tone, you are finding the response of the person psychologically, emotionally, by muscles, by posture, by stability, by their movements, whether they're fearing, whether they're enjoying. All those things are important, and you need to maintain the balance within that. So that you have to experience it. Number one. Number two, say when you are applying any technique first time, go through the book. I will say go through the book. Whatever the book says, go exactly like that. When you start doing that, you will understand your own hand. And when you understand your own hand, your own perception of pressure, like how you are giving a pressure. Like say, for example, I am holding a hand, the pressure I am giving, you are holding my hand, the pressure will be different, right? So how can I say that this pressure is right or that pressure is wrong? Maybe my pressure also should help the patient to, my pressure also helps the patient to control the movement. Your pressure is also helping. That means though the pressures are different, both are right, right? So you have to experience it.
Thank you, sir. Thank you very much. And there is one more question from Madhuri. So can you please give a brief idea on the A icing and C icing again?
See, A icing is basically quick icing. A icing is basically quick icing. You give a quick icing. So this is basically a facilitatory training to improve the muscle tone in a simple way, right? Whereas C icing is a slow icing comparatively, but it is not done in a normal upper limb, lower limb, like limb or something. It is mostly done for the diaphragm and abdomen. So the person will be, like say for I give an example, the person will be lying on a sideline position and we will be using ice lollipops. I think ice lollipops, we know ice lollipops, something ice lollipops, and then we'll be stroking them from down to up to stimulate the diaphragm. For abdomen, again, we'll be stroking from out to inwards, like that, we'll be stroking them.
Thank you,
So
sir.
it's
Thank you.
abdominal or diaphragm stretch, yes.
Yes, sir. Thanks a lot, sir. There's one more query from Dr. Reshma. Peripheral stimulation is necessary always. Is it necessary, or we have a better way to directly affect the brain?
See, I will not say it is not necessary, number one. And I will not also say that this is the only stimulation. Like the stimulation, the way we need to reach the brain. So how we reach the brain, right? Say for example, I'm talking, you are listening, and when I'm talking, my words are reaching to your brain, and they are your cognitive system are explaining that and making them store in your brain. So this is a way. This is also a stimulation. So verbal stimulation, visual stimulation, tactile stimulations, all should come from the outside thing. Like we have to provide this one. Now central. So central means you make person understand by themselves how that will be done. That goes through the deeper structures. We stimulate the cortical sensations, we stimulate the deep sensation, we stimulate the superficial sensation. Ultimately it's all about the stimulation, the sensation which guide our brain to perform.
Thank you, sir. Thanks a lot. And there's one more query from Ram. What specific technique should be used for the person with the sensory impairment?
Very good. So that is, like if you go through the last portion, that sensory integration, we have said the sensation should be normal. If it is not there, we need to improve the sensation, right? So the technique is sensory integration. I will say, if the particular person to have a sensory impairment, we should go for a sensory integration technique. It is usually done for the pediatrics and also can be done for the adult, though it is more effective for the pediatrics. So how we are stimulating, we try to stimulate, say if anything what we give, a particular nerve, especially the peripheral nerves. Let's talk about peripheral nerves. These peripheral nerves work on, they have a sensory aspect, they have a motor aspect. So you encourage that particular peripheral nerve to perform, you automatically will try to stimulate the peripheral component. Now it is obviously, I cannot guarantee that that particular thing will develop, the sensory portion will develop on the patient for sure, but obviously we can give a try on that.
Thank you, sir. Thanks a lot for such a great explanation. And we are having a very good number of questions. They are indicating that the listeners, the participants were much curious and they have learned a lot during the session. And there is one more question from Johar Maina, sir. It was a very interesting question, sir. In stroke patients, which technique is most beneficial? It is tricky for them to decide. Brainstorm, where it is suggesting the reflexes are good, acts facilitatory. Entity says reflexes has to be inhibited. So how to decide what to do with the stroke patient?
Okay, Johar Mania sir, uh, this is only one answer it is to that. Say there is no particular technique for a particular stroke patients. You cannot maybe say for example, I am trained on NDT. I will try NDT only. I am trained on Brainstorm. I will do Brainstorm only. I am trained on PNF. I'll be doing PNF. But there is the best result is when you go in a collective approach. Like you need to concentrate on your brain, you need to concentrate on your biomechanical components, you need to concentrate on your functional components, and our aim should be to make the person functionally active, and based on that we will train. Like say for example, you have said that Brainstorm and NDT. Brainstorm saying facilitate, NDT says inhibit. Both are right in their own way, because Brainstorm says which is not present, facilitate them. NDT says which is there, it may go higher, so don't allow them to go higher, first inhibit them to be in a normal state. So that is the conceptual difference between the Brainstorm and NDT. But both are saying the same thing: normalize the movement. So that is what you have to do. Means that is your assessment, and you have to identify which one to do. Like you need to facilitate or inhibit. See the patient, what is there, see their motor control, see their functional state, and then make the decision whether you have to do the facilitation or inhibition on the patient. We cannot say that stroke patient requires all facilitation. We cannot say stroke patients require all inhibitions. Like there are states, there are particular movements. Like say I have not developed dorsiflexion, so I have to facilitate dorsiflexion. I have developed dorsiflexion. Okay, so I do not need to facilitate, rather I need to inhibit some aspect. Otherwise what happened, due to the excess of dorsiflexion movement, I may end up in knee hyperextension, right? So I have to prevent that. Like that ways I have to identify to the patients.
Thank you, sir. Thanks a lot. So nicely and practically explained things. And there's one more query. Can we use NDT in osteomyelitic patient?
See, this is osteomyelitis. Like I tell you a story. When I was doing my bachelor's, one of my professor said me, okay, you want to fail one student, give a question on osteomyelitis. Like so it's a very complicated, that's my orthopedic professor has said me, that you want to fail one student, give a question on osteomyelitis. He will be complete that, like everything is applicable in osteomyelitis and everything is not applicable in osteomyelitis. We cannot say in that way, right? So whether NDT is applied on osteomyelitis or not, I will say yes, and I will again say no. That's all depend on the patient's state. Which state of osteomyelitis the patient is. In the initial state, yes, we can do. In a later state, no, we cannot.
Thank you, sir. Thanks a lot for such a great and wonderful session. And we had a very good number of queries, very good interaction with the participant. It was really a great session. After a very long time, we had a good queries, good question and answers, and you have well elaborated all the techniques in such a short period of time.
Still, I feel there are so many things to speak on this thing, but due to 1 hour constraints, I have gone through as small as possible, right? It
still,
requires
sir,
maybe a 2-3 days of explanation.
Yes, sir. I can see you have finished one book in 1 hour. It was a great thing because it is just summarizing all the neurorehabilitation, facilitation, and inhibition. Itself is a complete neuro rehab, and you have well summarized it, and even so much in a very explanatory way, in an elaboratory way. You have explained all the techniques separately, and you made us to understand it as easy as possible. So it is a Really great
Thank you.
thing, sir. And we are really grateful to you for such a wonderful session. And it is not a very simple task or easy thing to summarize such a great area of the rehabilitation, neuro rehabilitation, in just a very short time, even not a 1 hour, even within 50 minutes only. So it is a I can say it is a sign of a great teacher. A great teacher always can do anything in a very short span of time, and
Thank
we
you
have
so
well
much.
understood.
It's all about. Hope people have understood what I want to mean.
yeah, sir. Definitely,
Right.
we have well understood, and I would like to let you know, sir, we have the participant from around 4 or 5 countries here for this session. We had around
that's great.
more than 124 registration for this session, but I think many of the participants might be having filled their email IDs in the wrong. So most of the email has been rejected when I send the mail for the link. Though they may not be able to join, we had the 130 plus registration for this particular session. Participant has joined us from the Pakistan, from the Saudi Arabia, so from the Bangladesh, from the US itself, and from the all areas of our country. And we have various researchers, various senior academician and faculty members also joined us here. And we have Dr. Amita Anup Sharma ma'am from the Saudi Arabia, and Dr. Charu Sharma ma'am, my own teacher from the Washington, USA. And Dr. Priyanka Mangal is also joined us from the USA, Washington itself. And Dr. Dhanjit, they joined us from the Assam. And Dr. Harsh Rajiv sir, Dr. Ritu Sharma ma'am, they both has joined us. They are both my teachers and they're very senior physical therapist, good academician and clinician as well. And various other, I may be missing some names, but we had a good number of participants, good researcher, academician here for this great session today. And we are really grateful to you for making this session a wonderful and a great informative session. We have learned a lot, and thanks a lot, sir. Thank you very, very much.
Thank you. I also like to thank Physio in Calcutta, the complete group of Physio in Calcutta. Okay, I have personally spoke with Dr. Harsh and Dr. Himanshu, and they have they are doing a great job. They are doing a great job. I think they need applause for their work. They are spreading the knowledge. Like this lockdown period, they have spreading the knowledge throughout India and world very nicely. I should say hats off to you people that you are working every day. Like I think I get notification from you people that almost every week there are 2 to 3 things are happening. So yes, like sir, you are working so hard for this. Like hats off to you and congratulations, gratitude.
All your blessings, sir. And it is just because of the support and blessing of the resource person like you that they are always ready to support for the and to contribute for the profession. So thanking you, thanks to you from the core of my heart, and hope for the such contribution in future too if possible. Really grateful to you, sir. And many thanks to all the participants who has joined us, all the senior academicians and faculty members for their continuous support, love and blessings. We'll meet again at the next Friday at 9 p.m. The details would be shared soon. We also have a Facebook page as the name The Physio Inculcator. The YouTube channel, the name is The Physio Inculcator. Mostly all the webinars would be uploaded there at the YouTube channel. So for the further reference, if you want to review the readings, then you can definitely refer to that particular video link, or you can revise the things and you can relearn it. Thanking you all. Stay safe, stay tuned. Good night. Thanks, sir. Thanks a lot.
Good night. Good night, everybody. Stay home, stay safe.